freshman district. Chen lazily lay on the small pavilion, his arms behind his head, staring blankly at the drifting white clouds in the sky. A hint of helplessness crossed his handsome face. At this moment, Chen was feeling a bit of a headache, and the source of that headache was naturally the one-month deadline set by Grand Song Academy's headmaster for him to break through to the heaven-reaching stage. Currently, his cultivation was at the late stage of the heaven transformation stage. Although it seemed like only one step away from the heaven-reaching stage, Chen knew just how difficult that step would be. According to his estimates, even if he went all out in his training, using every method available, it would still take him at least 3 months, if not longer, to make this breakthrough. A month was simply too short. Chen sat up, irritatedly scratching his head. He understood that Grand Song Academy's headmaster was doing this for his safety. After all, most of those qualified to enter Sacred Spirit Mountain were top-tier figures among the younger generation of the North Song continent, some even stronger than the Demon Dragon Child. With his current strength at the late heaven transformation stage, even with all his tricks, he was likely to face overwhelming danger. There's no choice. I'll have to ask someone for help, Chen sighed, shrugging his shoulders. He then looked toward a quiet mountain deep in the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy, where Ling Xi resided. In this academy, Chen didn't know many elders, but Ling Xi was one of them. Although they hadn't known each other for long, for some unknown reason, Chen always felt an inexplicable trust in Ling Xi. It seemed like no matter what, she would never do anything to harm him. This feeling, sometimes even Chen couldn't fully understand, but deep down, he felt it might be related to his mother. Ling Xi had a portrait of his mother, which was enough to show some connection between them, but what kind of connection, Chen had no idea. Though Chen wasn't sure if Ling Xi could help him, at this point, he had no other choice but to give it a try. With this thought, Chen stopped hesitating and leaped into the air, heading straight for the quiet mountain peak deep within the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. These days, Luo Li had once again immersed herself in her intense cultivation, leaving Chen somewhat neglected, which made him feel a little resentful. Chen landed on the quiet mountain peak. As he descended, the previously tightly shut gates of the quiet courtyard had quietly opened, no longer sealed as before. Chen smiled and entered the courtyard. There, he saw a beautiful woman dressed in a snow-white dress sitting on the steps in front of a bamboo house. At that moment, Ling Xi, with her jade hand resting on her cheek, delicately played with a strand of green silk. Her lively eyes immediately focused on Chen as soon as he entered. Now, her fair face no longer carried the usual coldness. The softened expression made her look even more captivating. You haven't come to the courtyard for so many days. Now you suddenly show up. Something's on your mind, right? Ling Xi said lightly. Her voice was crisp, like the sound of a spring brook, exceptionally pleasant to the ear. Chen awkwardly smiled, walking up to her and explaining, I've been recovering from an injury, so I've been staying in bed. Ling Xi nodded gently, not saying anything more. Chen, feeling a bit uncomfortable with the silence, broke it with a smile. By the way, thanks again for that array diagram you gave me earlier. It really helped me this time. Ling Xi nodded, her delicate fingers still playing with the green silk, which then cascaded down to rest on her full chest. Her beautiful eyes quietly gazed at Chen. It was clear that Chen had something important to discuss. Under her gaze, Chen felt slightly awkward. He flicked his head and asked, Could you do me a favor? Speak. Ling Xi's long lashes fluttered. Is there any way to help me break through to the heaven-reaching stage within a month? Chen shrugged. Of course, I'm referring to something that won't leave any after effects. Breakthrough to the heaven-reaching stage in a month? Ling Xi was stunned for a moment, then her brows furrowed slightly. Sometimes, people spend a year or two just to take that step. Wanting to do it in a month might be a bit too unrealistic, don't you think? Chen gave a bitter smile. It wasn't that he was eager for success, but the headmaster of Grand Song Academy had only given him this 1 month. Whether he could make it or not, he had to try. Ling Xi's beautiful eyes were fixed on Chen. If it were anyone else asking her for such a favor, she probably wouldn't even spare them a glance. But facing Chen, she couldn't bring herself to refuse. This feeling was so astonishing to Ling Xi that she couldn't quite comprehend it. After all, she had only known him for less than 2 months. Why was he so different from others in her eyes? Was it because he had cultivated the great pagoda art? Or was it because the woman in the painting, who was also incredibly important to her, happened to be his mother? Ling Xi's eyes flickered slightly, and her thoughts became a little confused. Chen saw her silence and assumed she was unable to help. He could only sigh and say, "If it's not possible, then never mind. I'll head back." He turned to leave, thinking it might be inappropriate to stay at her place since she lived alone. "Wait," came Ling Xi's clear voice. Chen turned around to find her extending her slender, delicate hand toward him. The sunlight hit her hand, making it glow with a soft, milky light. "Give me your hand," Ling Xi said, her lips slightly parting. Chen was taken aback. He hesitated for a moment, then stepped forward and placed his hand in hers. The sensation was exquisite, like holding a fine piece of mutton fat jade, smooth and delicate, hard to let go of. But at this moment, Chen didn't have any other thoughts. It was strange. Given Ling Xi's personality, she didn't seem like the type to do something so trivial. "Release your spiritual energy," Ling Xi murmured softly. Chen was confused but did as instructed, channeling a burst of spiritual energy. A dark, shadowy energy surged from his palm, with black flames flickering within it. Ling Xi glanced at it, then released her own spiritual energy. Her energy was also dark, but without the black flames. Chen was stunned. The fluctuation of her spiritual energy was strikingly similar to the energy he cultivated through the great pagoda art. It seemed Ling Xi had indeed once practiced the same art. The two streams of energy swirled in their palms, and as they touched, they began to slowly merge. Boom! As the energies fused, both of them could distinctly feel the surge in power. The energy expanded several times over, and became even stronger. Ling Xi gazed at the merged energy without pulling her hand back. With a gentle flick of her slender finger, she sent the energy into Chen's body. Chen's body trembled slightly. The amplified energy flowed through him, following the cultivation route of the great pagoda art, and eventually entered his qi si, where it was devoured by his divine soul. As his divine soul absorbed the energy, Chen immediately felt the strength of his spiritual energy grow substantially. Chen was in shock, his expression filled with confusion as he looked at Ling Xi. Why did their energies create such changes when they merged? Not only did it heal him, but it also made his energy more powerful, almost like a ritual offering. "I don't know either," Ling Xi replied, shrugging her shoulders lightly, imitating his gesture. "It seems there's something special between us." Ling Xi stood up, her white dress hugging her slender and curvaceous figure, exuding a graceful charm. She suddenly smiled softly and said, "If the woman in that painting, who is so important to me, really is your mother, do you think she might have chosen a child bride for you?" Chen staggered back, nearly choking on her words. After a long pause, he wiped the sweat from his forehead and said, "That joke is not funny at all." "Let's hope so," Ling Xi said, nodding, before turning and heading deeper into the courtyard. "Come with me. Given our special situation, it might not be entirely impossible to reach the heaven-reaching stage within a month." Chen stared at her enchanting figure, letting out a long sigh, then quickly followed her. Her words had truly frightened him. Deep within the courtyard, layers of sheer curtains blocked the view, creating a hazy atmosphere. Ling Xi stopped and turned her head to Chen. "Wait until I tell you before coming in." After stepping through the sheer curtain, Ling Xi arrived at a crystal-clear pond. Standing beside it, she gently bit her red lip with her pearl-white teeth, lowering her head to gaze at her beautiful reflection in the water, her white dress as snow. She then smiled, her expression captivating. She softly walked into the pond, her white dress soaking in the water, clinging to her slender and graceful figure, revealing a stunning, mesmerizing curve. Ling Xi sat down in the pond, crossing her legs. Powerful spiritual energy surged from her body and flowed into the water, which gradually turned a dark, mysterious hue, shimmering with a beautiful glow. "Come in." Chen, who had been waiting beyond the layers of sheer fabric, finally heard Ling Xi's voice. He leaned in and entered, only to find Ling Xi sitting cross-legged in the pond. Though most of her figure was submerged in the dark water, her upper body remained above the surface. Her white dress, now soaked, revealed her long, fair neck extending downward, forming a graceful arc. This sensual scene left Mu Chen momentarily stunned. A faint mist rose from the pond, but it couldn't hide the captivating sight. Whoosh! Ling Xi noticed Mu Chen's unblinking gaze. A blush appeared on her jade-like face, and with a wave of her hand, a jet of water shot out and sprayed directly at him. The cool water splashed over him, snapping Mu Chen back to reality. He quickly turned his gaze away, feeling somewhat awkward. He didn't quite understand what Ling Xi was intending to do. Enter the pond and absorb all the spiritual energy inside. Ling Xi tried to lower her body, but the pond wasn't very deep, so she couldn't conceal herself entirely. The rising mist caused her usually cold face to flush slightly. She clenched her teeth and said, "And keep your eyes in check. If you dare to look around, I'll throw you out." Mu Chen nodded repeatedly before jumping into the pond. As his hand brushed the water, his eyes widened in surprise. He could clearly sense the pure spiritual energy contained within the pond. This fluctuation came from Ling Xi's own spiritual energy. She had infused her power into the water to assist him in his cultivation. Mu Chen froze for a moment, his gaze complex as he looked through the mist, still seeing Ling Xi's graceful figure with its elegant curves. "Why are you doing this?" Mu Chen murmured. Ling Xi's actions were essentially using her own spiritual energy to help him. While it would speed up his cultivation, her own progress would be delayed, even if only temporarily. Who in this world would go so far for someone they barely knew? Ling Xi sat in the pond, her expression somewhat confused as she heard Mu Chen's words. Yes, why was she doing this for him? Yet, deep inside, she felt no resistance. "I don't know. Maybe it's something I should do," she whispered. "Though I've lost my memories, the feelings deep inside me haven't disappeared. I just feel that doing this might be the right thing." Mu Chen fell silent, sitting cross-legged in the pond. The mist gently brushed his face. After a while, he smiled faintly and said, "Ling Xi, sister, can I call you that?" Ling Xi's body trembled slightly. She lifted her beautiful eyes and looked at the young man, smiling brightly by the edge of the pond. For a moment, she was at a loss for words. Deep inside, something stirred in her heart, making her usually cold heart feel a warmth she hadn't experienced in a long time. A faint smile appeared on her delicate face, and she lightly nodded. "Don't worry, Ling Xi sister," Mu Chen said resolutely. "Though I don't know what your relationship with my mother is, I promise you, I will help you regain your lost memories. Whoever did this to you, I will make them pay." Ling Xi stared at the boy's determined eyes, and the warmth in her heart grew stronger. It was an emotion she hadn't felt in a long time, and her eyes subtly reddened. She turned her head slightly, wiping her eyes with her jade hand. Then, she smiled gently and said, "All right then, I'll consider you my little brother. But don't talk big. Right now, you're still too weak." "All right, you should focus on your cultivation for now," Ling Xi said with a light smile. Although Mu Chen knew what the pool of water represented, he didn't show any pretense. Sometimes, it's enough to keep such feelings in one's heart. Speaking them aloud might make them seem insincere. So, he nodded gently, closed his eyes slowly, and began circulating the great pagoda art within his body. Instantly, black light spread across his skin. Splash, splash. The water in the pool rippled, as if it had gained its own spirit, rushing rapidly towards Mu Chen. The blackness within the pool also continuously drilled into his body. That was the spiritual energy from Ling Xi's body. As the spiritual energy entered Mu Chen's body, it immediately merged with his own. In that instant of fusion, a deep black light erupted within him, seeping into every corner of his body. At the same time, his spiritual power surged explosively. The immense spiritual energy raced through his meridians, ultimately flowing into his qi, where it was devoured by the divine soul seated within. The divine soul radiated black halos, appearing profoundly mysterious. Mu Chun could feel the growing strength of his spiritual energy spreading through every limb and bone. He immersed himself in the delightful sensation of his spiritual power growing stronger. The speed of the great pagoda art seemed to increase, greedily absorbing the endless stream of spiritual energy pouring into him. In the pool, Ling Xi watched as Mu Chun entered his cultivation state. She curled her long, slender legs, resting her pale chin on her knees. The spiritual energy within her body continuously surged out, merging into the pool to replenish the energy Mu Chun had absorbed. As her spiritual energy drained, Ling Xi felt a faint sense of weakness spread from the depths of her body, but she didn't stop. She held her knees with her delicate arms, her eyes gradually losing focus, and then slowly closed. A sense of dizziness spread across Ling Xi's mind. Her consciousness slowly began to fade into darkness. Ling Xi's awareness drifted in the darkness, a feeling of helplessness causing her to feel a bit scared. In the dark, it seemed as if some disturbance rippled outward. Faintly, blurry images began to emerge. It was a ruin filled with the fires of war and bloodshed, a filthy, disheveled little girl trembling and huddling among the broken stones, shivering as rain poured down, making her already frail body seem even more pitiful. Her eyes had turned dull and gray. She could sense death approaching, but she was not afraid. Though she was young, she had seen too much cruelty and indifference in the world. No one cared. No one liked her. Even if she disappeared, no one would notice. Since her birth, she had never felt any warmth. Her consciousness grew more and more hazy, and it seemed she would die like this. The rain on her body stopped falling at some point. She vaguely saw a figure appear in front of her and lifted her head. Through the blur, she saw a gentle figure. The gentle figure extended a hand, gently rubbing her head. Under her touch, the little girl's icy body began to warm up. In her fuzzy state, she felt an incredible warmth from the figure. Then she saw the figure place some food in front of her, rub her head once more, and then rise to leave. She watched the figure fade away and suddenly felt a surge of courage from somewhere. She reached for the food on the ground and shakily followed. She followed for an unknown amount of time until her strength was spent. Finally, she gazed at the figure, which seemed so unreachable. Her tiny body collapsed to the ground. However, instead of falling onto the hard ground, she was caught in a warm embrace. "Little one, do you want to come with me?" The gentle figure rubbed her head, her voice just as tender. Weakly, she tightly grasped the woman's sleeve, as if holding on to the last bit of warmth in her life. "But where I'm going is dangerous too. If you follow me, there's no telling what may happen." The gentle woman sighed softly. The little girl nestled into the woman's embrace, greedily absorbing the warmth. She eventually followed the gentle woman and left. "What's your name?" Ling Xi. Such a beautiful name." "Really? Then how should I address you?" Call me Aunt Jing," the gentle woman said with a soft smile. Aunt Jing. Ling Xi, let me teach you how to cultivate. First, you need to choose a cultivation technique. Here, choose one. These are all very powerful. Let me see. Is this one okay?" She looked at the glowing scrolls floating in front of her. Each of them emitted an astounding light. After hesitating for a long time, she finally set her eyes on a black scroll in the corner that seemed unremarkable. What's wrong? Aunt Jing, can't I choose this one?" "No. This technique is split into two parts, Yin and Yang. The one before you is the Yin scroll. The Yang scroll has been left for my little Mu. If you cultivate this one, it will bring you great disadvantages later." "Little Mu? Is he your child, Aunt Jing?" Yes, he's a very cute little guy, a bit younger than Ling Xi." She looked at Aunt Jing's heartfelt, joyful smile, feeling a pang in her heart. She asked, "Then why did you separate from him?" Aunt Jing gently touched her head, her expression turning sorrowful. "Because I wanted to protect him, so I had to leave." Ling Xi nodded slightly, though not fully understanding, and said, "Then, I'll cultivate it. If you cultivate this, it will bring you a lot of trouble and danger." "I'm not afraid. Since you miss little Mu so much, if I cultivate the same technique, I'll be able to find him later, and then I'll bring him to see you," she said, willing to do anything to make Aunt Jing happy. Aunt Jing gazed at the little girl's innocent face, letting out a faint sigh. She looked up at the far distant place, the place she had to return to, a place filled with great power but also coldness. Compared to that place, she much preferred staying in the small northern spirit realm, where her husband and the little one she would give everything for were. But sometimes, she had to make a choice, because she had to protect that little one. So, even though it hurt, she had no choice but to leave. In the pool, Ling Xi's long eyelashes fluttered slightly, then slowly opened. Her beautiful eyes were filled with shimmering tears. She gently wiped the water from her cheek and murmured, "Aunt Jing." When Chen emerged from his cultivation state, he could feel the vast spiritual energy flowing within him. The energy was much more profound than before. In just half a day of cultivation, according to Chen's feeling, it was probably equivalent to 10 days of his usual training. Such efficiency was truly remarkable. At this rate, Chen was likely to break through and reach the heaven-reaching stage in just a month. He stretched lazily, and his bones made cracking sounds as he moved. His body was filled with an exhilarating sense of satisfaction. Turning his head, he looked at the pool. The once dark water was now crystal clear, clearly indicating that the spiritual energy within had been completely absorbed. He looked up at the water and froze. In the pool, Ling Xi was hugging her knees, her delicate face unusually pale. Her frail body seemed to tremble slightly. "Ling Xi," Chen exclaimed, quickly standing up and walking over. He lifted her gently, the clear water cascading off her slender figure. Her already soaked dress clung to her curves, outlining a captivating silhouette. However, Chen wasn't focused on her beauty at that moment. He laid Ling Xi on the nearby grass, then took out a large robe to wrap her in. "I'm fine. I just ran out of spiritual energy," Ling Xi said, tightening the robe around her. Her gaze remained fixed on Chen, as though she were trying to memorize his face. "What's wrong?" Chen felt a little uncomfortable under her gaze and smiled. "Now that I look at you, you really do resemble Aunt Jing," Ling Xi said with a light smile. "Aunt Jing?" Chen paused, then realized. Surprised, he asked, "You mean my mother?" Ling Xi nodded gently. "Earlier, I vaguely remembered something." She paused, then looked at Chen with a smiling face. "So, you're the little Mu that Aunt Jing mentioned? Come, call me sister." Ling Xi stretched out her jade-like hand and gently tugged at Chen's ear, her eyes sparkling with a smile. At this moment, her words and actions were truly warm and close, and everything felt much more natural than before. Chen felt a bit awkward, but he didn't mind Ling Xi's natural closeness. In fact, it made him feel a faint warmth in his heart. He helplessly turned his head away to avoid Ling Xi's hand, and quickly returned to the topic at hand. His eyes shone with excitement and urgency. "Sister Ling Xi, do you remember? Do you know where my mother is?" Before leaving the northern spirit realm, he had promised his father that he would bring his mother back. His father was all alone in the northern spirit realm, and it felt too lonely for him. But now, Chen was still too weak to venture into the vast world to search for his mother's whereabouts. However, if he could get some information in advance, it would undoubtedly be an uplifting thing. Ling Xi shook her head slightly and said, "I only have some fragmentary memories, and they are from a long time ago. However, Aunt Jing went to a place that should be very dangerous." At this point, her delicate eyebrows furrowed. She continued, "That place. I may have been there before. It's possible that I lost my memories there, and something must have been done to me by someone at that place." By the end, her voice had turned cold, her jade-like hands clenched tightly, and her eyes were filled with hatred. Chen also furrowed his brows. Based on the information he had gathered from his father, his mother seemed to come from a very ancient and powerful place. She had left because she was worried that people from that place would come after them, and to avoid implicating father and son, she had left alone. The dangerous place Ling Xi mentioned was most likely the mysterious place his mother had come from. But what had happened there that caused Ling Xi, who had always been with his mother, to become separated from her and lose her memories? Chen clenched his fists tightly. What exactly happened to his mother? Don't worry, Aunt Jing is very strong. Even if she runs into trouble, it won't be a big problem, Ling Xi said, her cool jade hand gently holding Mu Chen's hand as she spoke softly. Right now, you just need to focus on improving your strength. Otherwise, even if you find out where Aunt Jing is, you won't be able to do anything. If you rush there recklessly, you might even cause unnecessary trouble for Aunt Jing. Mu Chen's expression became serious. If his mother was truly trapped in the mysterious place she came from, his current strength was indeed not enough to help. After all, if, as Ling Xi said, she even lost her memories there, his strength was far too insufficient. Sister Ling Xi, how strong are you? Mu Chen asked cautiously. Dealing with the heavenly seed elder from your Northern Song Spiritual Academy shouldn't be a problem, Ling Xi answered casually. So strong. Mu Chen was a bit shocked. This was a true genius. Even the young generation from the Northern Song continent, compared to her, would seem insignificant. The 5 heavenly seed elders from your Northern Song Spiritual Academy are only at the 1st grade supreme level, not particularly strong. Headmaster Taisong is much more powerful, probably at the 5th grade supreme level, Ling Xi said, raising her slender jade finger to tuck a loose strand of hair behind her ear. Her lips curled into a slight smile. The Academy's guardian beast, the North Abyss Dragon Kuan, is indeed very strong. It should now be at the 9th grade supreme level, and it's probably trying to break through to the Earth supreme level. But even that power is still far below Aunt Jing's. Mu Chen gave a crooked smile. Although he suspected his mother was extraordinary, he didn't expect her to be this powerful, outmatching even the North Abyss Dragon Kuan. It was almost unimaginable. So don't be surprised. After all, I was personally trained by Aunt Jing, Ling Xi smiled charmingly. If you had been trained by Aunt Jing since you were little, you'd be even stronger than me now. Mu Chen smiled bitterly. I guess I wasn't that lucky. Since I was born, I've never even seen my mother, let alone been trained by her. Ling Xi extended her jade hand, gently turning Mu Chen's face to face her. She looked him in the eyes seriously and said, Aunt Jing left you because she wanted to protect you. I can feel that she cares deeply about you. So, you mustn't throw childish tantrums or blame her for not being by your side. Mu Chen smiled and nodded, just about to speak when he suddenly noticed something. His expression changed as his gaze shifted to the rear. There, Xun'er, holding a broom taller than herself, was staring at them with wide eyes, clearly shocked. Mu Chen coughed lightly when he saw the situation, hurriedly pulling Ling Xi's jade hand from his face as he stood up and walked towards Xun'er. Ah, Brother Mu Chen, I didn't see anything. I won't tell Sister Luo Li, don't silence me. Xun'er, seeing Mu Chen walking toward her, quickly said in a flustered manner. Mu Chen, amused, flicked the smooth forehead of the little girl and said, What nonsense are you saying? Sister Ling, she was just helping me with my cultivation. Xun'er blinked her big eyes, glanced at Mu Chen, and then at Ling Xi, who was soaked and still wearing Mu Chen's robe. She puckered her lips. Is this how cultivation is done? Does she really think she's a child? Ling Xi smiled gently, took off Mu Chen's robe, folded it neatly, but didn't return it to him. Instead, she kept it for herself. Her spiritual energy flickered, evaporating the moisture completely. It was clear her spiritual energy had recovered some. She stood up and walked over to Mu Chen, saying, Let's stop here for today. Come again tomorrow. If you continue, you should be able to break through within a month. Continue tomorrow? Mu Chen paused and hesitated. Isn't that too soon? How about taking a break for a day? Draining so much spiritual energy from one's body could cause significant damage. Although Ling Xi was powerful, Mu Chen didn't want to see her suffer any consequences because of him. You really are considerate. But don't worry, I can handle this much, Ling Xi chuckled. Her natural smile caused Xun'er to stare in disbelief. In her memory, Ling Xi had always been distant towards Mu Chen, and seeing her smile was an extremely rare event. All right then, Mu Chen said with a slight nod, not saying anything more. He waved his hand to the two of them and turned to leave the courtyard. Ling Xi watched his retreating figure, a soft smile on her lips. Aunt Jing, I found him. Don't worry. Until I find you, I'll protect him and make sure he doesn't suffer the slightest harm. It's over. Xun'er saw Ling Xi smiling as she gazed at Mu Chen's back, and it seemed like she had figured something out. Her little face immediately showed a look of distress, and she said, "Sister Ling Xi, do you like Brother Mu Chen?" Ling Xi turned her head with a teasing look and asked, "What? Is there a problem with that?" Xun'er gathered her courage and said, "This isn't right. Brother Mu Chen and Sister Luo Li are meant to be together. You little traitor, you're not even helping me?" Ling Xi reached out and pinched Xun'er's small face, smiling mischievously. "Woo-woo. Sister Ling Xi, forcing things won't bring happiness. Xun'er, how about you go clean the spirit formation cottage today?" No, I was wrong. Sister Ling Xi and Brother Mu Chen are the perfect match. Over the next 2 weeks, Mu Chen came to the mountain where Ling Xi resided almost every day, continuing his special and alluring form of cultivation. However, it must be said that this kind of cultivation brought immense benefits to Mu Chen. He never imagined that when his spiritual energy merged with Ling Xi's, it would bring such massive results. But as time went by, Mu Chen began to feel a bit reluctant to continue with such rapid progress. After each session of cultivation, Ling Xi would become somewhat weak. Clearly, this method was beneficial to him, but it wasn't good for Ling Xi. This situation made him feel a bit regretful. If he had known this earlier, he wouldn't have asked Ling Xi for help. Thus, after about half a month, Mu Chen finally couldn't bear the guilt anymore. His visits to Ling Xi became less frequent. He wasn't indecisive, but he couldn't remain indifferent when he saw Ling Xi's beautiful face grow slightly pale and weak because of him. On the small pavilion in the freshman district, Mu Chen sat cross-legged on the rooftop, staring blankly at the sky with a somewhat dazed expression. Rustle. There was the soft sound of footsteps approaching from behind, and with it came that familiar, refreshing fragrance that made his heart feel at ease. However, this time, Mu Chen remained lost in thought, staring at the sky. Luo Li approached and sat next to Mu Chen, her ice-like eyes focused on him. She softly asked, "What's wrong?" She had noticed in the past couple of days that Mu Chen seemed a bit distracted, his expression somewhat absent and confused. This made her slightly worried. Mu Chen looked at Luo Li, the girl who had gone through life and death trials with him on the spirit road, the one who made his heart always stay connected to hers. Luo Li lowered her head, her clear, large eyes filled with some confusion as she looked at Mu Chen. Mu Chen fell silent for a moment, then took a deep breath and began to explain in detail about his plan to break through to the heaven-reaching stage within a month, as well as the situation with Ling Xi. He even shared the connection between her and his mother. He didn't want to hide anything from Luo Li. Luo Li listened quietly. "Do I really need to accept such an easily attainable power?" Mu Chen murmured. "Indeed, breaking through to the heaven-reaching stage would be effortless this way." Luo Li's beautiful eyes blinked lightly, and after a long pause, she looked at Mu Chen and softly said, "Mu Chen, do you know why I fell for you?" Mu Chen was stunned, gazing at her perfect face. "I like you, not because of your appearance, nor because of your methods, and certainly not because of your talent. I like you because I love the boy who, on the spirit road, no matter what kind of hardship, life-threatening danger, or ambush he faces, would always tell me with a confident smile, 'Don't be afraid. I'll get you out of here.' I like your smile that always believes in itself." Before, because of the turmoil in the Luo God clan, I had no choice but to passively accept the responsibility of a legacy that had lasted for millennia. I had to force myself to cultivate in order to bear that responsibility, but in my heart, I had no hope because I didn't believe I could shoulder such a heavy burden. But after meeting you on the spirit road, you taught me to believe in myself. Luo Li's sparkling eyes locked onto Mu Chen. Her gentle voice, like the sound of a morning bell, slowly seeped into his soul, causing the confusion in his eyes to slowly fade. Deep within his black pupils, it seemed that light was beginning to gather again. And now, the one who taught me to believe in myself seems to have lost his own confidence. What do you think? How should I convince him? Luo Li's delicate, jade-like hand gently caressed Mu Chen's face, smiling as she spoke. Huff. A puff of white air escaped Mu Chen's mouth, and the heavy feeling in his heart dispersed. A smile slowly appeared on the corner of his lips. In the spirit road, he didn't know how many life-or-death moments he had faced, but even when he couldn't use any spiritual energy, he never wavered. He believed in himself. No matter the difficulty, he would push through. He had relied on himself to overcome all those trials. So why now, with a mere breakthrough to the heaven-reaching stage, was his confidence being shaken like this? Why did he have to resort to methods that hurt others to increase his own power? His path to becoming a supreme powerhouse would not be like this. Mu Chen clenched his 5 fingers into a fist. The smile on his face grew wild and confident. Heaven-reaching stage? I'll break through relying on my own strength. Luo Li looked at the familiar smile on Mu Chen's face and smiled softly in return. This was the Mu Chen she liked, forever confident, unshaken by any obstacle. Mu Chen. Mu Chen looked up, gazing at the stunning girl in the black dress with golden patterns along the long sleeves, giving her an air of nobility. This was the future queen of the Luo god clan. The more he looked, the more he liked her. Luo Li raised her clear and lively eyes, looking at Mu Chen. Thank you, but I can't hold back anymore. Mu Chen smiled and placed his hands on Luo Li's delicate shoulders, then pounced on her. In the midst of her startled voice, he knocked her to the ground. Her radiant long hair spread across the ground like a galaxy. Luo Li looked up, slightly startled, as Mu Chen lay on top of her, his tall body pressing firmly against hers. The intense heat from his body made her cheeks burn. Heh. Mu Chen gazed at her face so close to his and couldn't help but laugh. Luo Li rolled her eyes at him, then, with a serious face, said, "Don't think I'm going to comfort you." "Then let me comfort you." Mu Chen lowered his head and, in Luo Li's slightly widened beautiful eyes, kissed her lips, that touch red enough to melt anyone. Mu Chen enjoyed the gentle warmth, but he wasn't content with just that. His hand quietly slipped into the girl's dress, and he cupped the soft, firm roundness in his palm. Mu Chen. However, just as the fire in Mu Chen's lower abdomen surged, an urgent voice echoed from below the pavilion. The shout immediately shattered the fiery, intoxicating atmosphere. Luo Li was the first to regain her senses, her serene and stunning face turning bright red as if it had been set ablaze. She hurriedly shoved Mu Chen away, stood up, adjusted her dress, and shot him an annoyed glare. This guy was just too bad. Mu Chen forced a dry laugh, then gritted his teeth, looking displeased at Zhou Ling below the pavilion. What is it? Thankfully, this guy stuck to the rules and didn't jump up onto the rooftop. Otherwise, if he had seen Luo Li in such a delicate, watery state, Mu Chen wasn't sure he wouldn't have silenced him for good. Xun'er brought an elder to see you. Zhou Ling, seeing Mu Chen's displeased expression, could only speak innocently. Mu Chen froze upon hearing the word elder. Could it be Sister Ling Xi? What brought her here? Is it your sister Ling Xi? Luo Li's flushed face gradually returned to its normal color. She stepped closer, glancing at Mu Chen with an inexplicable look in her eyes. Mu Chen awkwardly nodded. Then let's go see her. After all, she's come all this way. Luo Li smiled. Mu Chen forced a smile, then pulled her out of the pavilion, heading toward the freshman district square. In the center of the square, the familiar, graceful figure of Ling Xi stood with a poised posture. Around the square, many members of the Luo God Society were secretly glancing at her, whispering amongst themselves. She's actually one of our Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy's elders? No way, how can she be so young? I heard she's a spiritual array master. Her power is terrifying. Her age doesn't seem much older than us. Could she be like Elder Zhu? Probably not. She feels different. Why is she looking for Brother Mu Chen? Could it be, you're looking for death? Don't you know the big sis will chop you up if she hears that? Mu Chen heard the whispered conversations and could only shake his head helplessly. With a shift of his body, he appeared before Ling Xi and Xun'er, smiling. Sister Ling Xi, what brings you to the freshman district? Ling Xi raised her gaze, glanced at Mu Chen, then at Luo Li beside him. She nodded gently, her brows furrowing slightly. Why haven't you come to train with me? Mu Chen smiled and spoke sincerely. Sister Ling Xi, I'll handle the next phase of my training myself. I truly appreciate all the help you've given me before. Ling Xi's brows furrowed even deeper. If you rely on yourself, it'll be difficult to break through to the heaven-reaching stage in the next half-month. Why refuse? If you're worried that it might harm me, don't be. It's only a month of stagnant progress. Mu Chen shook his head slightly, speaking softly. Sister Ling Xi, I just believe in myself. Ling Xi paused, staring at Mu Chen. The young man before her had bright eyes, full of genuine confidence, so different from the uncertain expression he had when he first came to her. Sister Ling Xi, I'm truly grateful for your help. I know. You've helped me because of my mother. You just wanted to transfer the feelings you have for her onto me? Ling Xi had always been cold and distant, wary of others. Mu Chen wasn't vain. He understood that if it weren't for his mother, Ling Xi might still treat him with indifference, and certainly wouldn't go as far as to help him in a way that could harm herself. Mu Chen spoke earnestly. But, Sister Ling Xi, please don't spoil me too much. If my mother knew I was gaining strength this way, she might be very disappointed in me. And, Mu Chen sighed and shrugged, I also don't want to see you weak. If you are, it won't be as beautiful. Ling Xi stood frozen for a moment. She stared at the handsome young man before her, his smile as bright as the sun, causing her heart, frozen like ice, to tremble ever so slightly. She stood in silence for a long time before finally letting out a soft laugh. The smile on her face was so stunning that several students nearby couldn't look away. Compared to Luoli, Ling Xi certainly had her own charm. She walked up to him slowly, gently caressing Mu Chen's face. In her eyes, there was unmistakable affection. She sighed and said, No wonder you're Aunt Jing's child. At first, maybe it was indeed because of Aunt Jing, but now? She smiled warmly. Mu Chen felt awkward. All right, I won't pressure you. I believe you can do it, but from now on, come to my place to cultivate. I'll help you as much as I can, though not in the same way as before. This time, Mu Chen didn't refuse again. He smiled and nodded. Meanwhile, in the Grand Hall at the center of the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy, the 5 heavenly seed elders, including Grand Song Academy headmaster, were sitting together.